Oh, how I'd kill to see you again. Love's a game. I played the fool. I was wasted on your perfume. Yeah, you turned into a mess, but I must confess, oh, that I've never felt so alive. Well, that's a lesson learned. You showed me love. No, you taught me how to hurt. Was it worth it? No, 'cause now I'm coast to coast, alone, searching for solace and comfort, and I don't know if I can carry on. They called me crazy, and they're right. I had a multitude of sickly dispositions. You did mine. Instead you taught me how to dance, but not alone. Oh, if love is a game, then I only play to lose. Because empires will rise and fall like tides, and I live through it all. But it won't mean anything without you.
Alright, hello and welcome to my 8th speed paint. This is a drawing of Twilight and Yor from Spy Family. I decided to go ahead and create a full-on painting for this review post that I have to make for XPPan. So I went all out and decided to fully render this thing. And since it's such a long video, and because in my last video I didn't record hardly any commentary at all, I thought it would be fair to just go ahead and talk through a mic. And I've never made a voiceover before. Definitely not one this long. So, I mean, in my last video with the, like the unboxing and stuff like that, that was like a bunch of 10-second clips tied together. And I redid them constantly. But this one, I'm planning on just talking into the mic. Maybe just like treating it like a conversation. And I'm gonna try to not jump off too much when it comes to the topic. So anyways, with that being said, I'll go ahead and introduce myself if you don't already know me. My name is Sam, and I am a nursing student right now. I like to draw for fun, and I'm really interested in anything to do with art. I'm really just trying to improve right now. And my favorite thing to draw right now is Spy Family, because it is my favorite thing in the world right now. And I just said right now 4 times. Wow, isn't that crazy? I am so good at talking. Anyways, I wanted to also talk about my art process, and let's see, and just like thank you for watching the video. So let's get into it. This drawing of Lloyd and Yor, it's like a royalty AU basically. So I drew them as a prince and princess. In this AU, it's like really parallel to the Spy Family universe. Lloyd is a prince from Westalis, but he's actually undercover as a prince in Astania. So that's why he's all dressed up, and he's basically infiltrating a different country, pretending to be the royalty. And he snuck his way into Yor's palace. And then that's where we get interesting. that's where it gets interesting, because Yor likes to work undercover, not as the princess, because she doesn't like attention like that. She actually works as like a royal maid that is responsible for protecting her family. So, and like all of her royal subjects and stuff like that. And Lloyd knows this because it is actually a secret from the entire palace, except for her immediate family, which is Yuri. I don't know if we'll get into that, maybe if I ever make a comic, but yeah. So right now you see them dancing. Yor is in her like princess outfit, and Lloyd is in his prince outfit. And I like to imagine that they're at a ball or something, dancing for the first time. Because I don't know, actually. You know, it's just a drawing. Anything can happen in a drawing, right? So, yeah, that is what you're seeing right now, and that is why it is extremely detailed. And I think it also turned out really detailed because I've just improved a lot at drawing recently. I try to improve every time by like studying anatomy. For example, you can see Lloyd's head change drastically at some point in the video. But yeah, those are just some of the little things that I go through when I'm drawing. I change the anatomy. I try to learn how to draw certain things. And I guess that leads me into my next topic. I told you a little bit about the story already, of which I don't want to spoil too much about it, right? I can make some comics about it or just talk about it, but like Anya's definitely in the story as Lloyd's adopted daughter, and Bond, and Frankie, and Anya's classmates, Damien, stuff like that. But for the rest of the video, since it is an art video, I'll go ahead and talk about my art process. So let me just sit up in my chair a little. When I start a drawing, I like to gather a bunch of references. And that can be anything from the mood to anatomy. Like, for example, I have some books that I like to look at, or I even like to gather references about how to render. Like, how much do I want it to be rendered? Do I want it to look painterly? Do I want it to look realistic? Stuff like that just helps inspire me and helps me stay on track sometimes, if that makes sense. But it is very nice to not rely on references. You also want to put in your own creativity, because if you have way too many references, it can make things feel like a chore. For example, if you're trying to draw, let's say, like a rose, for example, you can get really distracted trying to make it look exactly like the rose, and then it kind of starts to feel like an assignment, you know? So, for example, I didn't look at a single reference for a rose, actually. I just drew the roses on Yor's head and on her clothes from my own imagination, which was, I guess you could say, I think probably because I've drawn a few roses in the past that I am able to do that, but that's why it's important to study some references and then draw them later and then see if you can remember that information. I think that's how I've managed to improve a lot at drawing recently, and that's how you become a little bit quicker, because I'm able to remember a little bit of what I have been studying and using for references. And then you kind of just become more familiar with the things that you're trying to draw, and then you just naturally, it just naturally becomes your art. And yeah, so once I'm done gathering a lot of references, and I will still continue to gather references when I started drawing, I put them all in one place and then I get to work. So for this painting, it'd been a long time since I since I drew something this massive. So I really wasn't sure how it was gonna turn out. So I went ahead and started doing a few thumbnails. And as you can see in the very, very beginning, I started with a very rough picture of the colors and the composition. Like, I think Lloyd's cape was actually blue originally, right? So you can tell that I changed that. So when it comes to a thumbnail, it really doesn't have to be set in stone. And so after the thumbnail, I went ahead and started sketching, or sorry, not sketching, but like actually line arting. So interestingly for this piece, I didn't do that much line art. I went ahead and outlined Yor's face and Lloyd's face and their hands, but I didn't do line art for the hair. And I believe that can be more of a stylistic choice. For me, I just knew internally that just skipping the line art for Yor's hair was going to be way more efficient because I really didn't know exactly how I wanted her hair to look. I knew I wanted it to be flowing in the wind, and when it comes to doing flowy lines like that, it's really hard to get accurate line art. Like, you know, you can draw a bunch of lines, but it's hard to get the form. So that's one tip when you're drawing hair, is to just go ahead and start doing the base color. And I believe there are so many art videos talking about that, so you probably don't want to hear it from me. But yeah, going ahead and just using a solid brush to outline the hair is a good hack for quickly drawing long flowy hair like I did. Furthermore, it looks like I already moved on to the coloring and like shading stage, so after I laid down all my base colors as much as I could, you can tell I did it really rough. For example, like Lloyd's belt there is like so messy. But once I have the base colors, I recently have started going over it all with a blending mode. And I've been using hard light, which basically works as like a really harsh lighting filter. It can darken the colors and saturate them, but it depends on the color that is lying above it. So for example, if you're using a very light yellow compared to like a very dark orange, the dark orange will like increase the saturation a lot more. It'll color it more towards the orange hue. But if you're using a really light yellow color, it will act more as like a very harsh light. It will change your base color to be pretty bright. So for example, I'm not using the hard light layer in the sense that I'm adding light to the piece. I'm actually using as you can see, it's like a darkish brown color, and I'm laying that over the entire line art, all the colors, and I'm clipping it, and I create a layer mask. So whenever I create the layer mask, it basically darkens the whole piece. And the way that I've been adding lighting lately is I take any brush really and change it to, like these days I've been using the lasso tool, but I take any brush that I feel like typically I'll start with the lasso tool. Okay, let's be real. I'll start with the lasso tool first, and I'll block out with the transparent color. As you can see in the top right, I set the shortcut to W, so it'll change it from drawing with color to drawing with transparent color, so the brush acts as an eraser. And I use that to block out the lighting and the shapes, which is exactly what you can see me doing right now as I'm watching my playback. And yeah, so whenever I hide that layer, it shows all my base colors underneath. And later in this piece, you can see that I flip back and forth between having the shaded layer above it and the base layer underneath. And when I was shading their faces, I typically hide that hard light layer and I add some color variation. So once I do my thumbnail, I do my sketch, I'll go ahead with some line art, sometimes, or half of the time, and then I'll go ahead with my base colors, block those shapes out, and then I'll go ahead with color variation where it's most obvious on yours face and Lloyd's face, but I will add like some red blush, or maybe on their clothing I will change the colors a little bit and I'll add some gradation depending on several things like relative color. For example, on their hair I will add some skin tone to their bangs to kind of simulate like a little bit of a transparent effect, but also to create some softness, and it increases like it decreases the harshness of some areas, and it allows for a really smooth transition between colors. And I think that's how or why a lot of people say my art glows a lot. But yeah. And so I'll go ahead with the color variation and the hard light layer above it. But recently, or more so lately, I've discovered that, you know, hard light is not really the only layer, and it's not always the best layer for blending modes, or when it comes to blending modes, or like shading your piece. For example, some people will shade with a multiply layer, and then go on top of that multiply layer with an add layer. And then some people will add a multiply layer or a color burn layer, and then go on top of it with a glow dodge layer. And the main point of all of this is that I really don't know what I'm doing. Okay, well maybe I know what I'm doing to an extent. But when it comes to my paintings, I switch it up a lot, and it really just comes down to the kind of effect that you want to give for your painting. For example, from this artist that I learned, if she's drawing a dark piece overall, she'll have dark base colors and add lighting with a add layer, for example. Or if she's drawing with a very light piece overall, she'll start with very light base colors and then add areas of shading with the multiply layer. So the main point to that is that there's so many different ways to draw, and I'm still learning every day. So what you see in my videos may not exactly be what's best for you, or it might not even be the same way that I draw next time. So when it comes to talking about my art process, it can be a little difficult. But from when I was younger and up till now, watching speed paints and seeing how other artists draw, and even just like consuming art tutorials, all of it helps. It forms you as an artist, and it helps you just more than the end goal. It helps you to get your foot in the door. It helps you get started. So that's why I feel very passionate when it comes to sharing my art process, making speed paints, and that's why on my Instagram accounts and on basically all my accounts, I just talk about drawing itself. Like, I talk about all the little details sometimes, maybe a little bit too much, but I enjoy it. And it all started because I was really frustrated with not knowing how to draw. I would draw something and I would be so confused. I would be like, where do I go from here? So, just seeing other artists and seeing what they did, maybe I won't do the same thing exactly, but at least it'll give me an idea about where to get started. And yeah. So where was I? When it comes to adding shading And when it comes to deciding how you want to shade, how you want to color, what kind of drawing you want to do, it's all up in the air. Me personally, when I started this drawing, you could see that it was really colorful. I wanted it to be like blue, I wanted it to be pink, I wanted to add a lot of extra colors that I almost never draw with, and I wasn't really that successful. I ended up rendering the piece in a very realistic way because that's just what I'm familiar with, and I guess I just had a little bit of trouble trying, like, the theory behind it, you know? Like, why does this artist color with these colors? And how do they get this effect? You know what I mean? Like, how do they get this effect with whatever? Like, for example, how did they manage to add lighting to their piece? Did they use overlay? Did they use hard light? Glow dodge? It's just hard to, like, you can always color pick a piece and add that into your own piece if you want to try learning. But when it comes down to it, being able to pick your own colors and create your own mood is, in my opinion, one of the more fun ways to draw. But also, it's a lot more... You can get better artwork that way, if that makes sense. But color picking is really helpful. Like looking at the colors from another piece, it's really helpful to figure out, like, okay, this artist is drawing with really desaturated colors, which you might not even be able to tell unless you're actually using a color dropper and looking at the piece. Because, like, when it comes to relative colors, if you have a bunch of, like, bright parts of a piece and you have a bunch of dark parts of a piece, the color that's next to the bright parts and the dark parts, it can look very different. So you might see in a bright piece, if you draw, like, I don't know, like a blue that's not really that saturated, like a lighter blue, and it's next to the color white, that blue is going to look like a really dark blue. But if you have the color black and you put that same color of blue next to that black color, that blue is going to look extremely bright. So it comes down to color theory sometimes, and you know, I have studied a little bit about color theory, but I definitely need to study more on that. I have some books on lighting. I need to look at those more. But from what I've seen mostly are from videos that artists have created on YouTube, or even from websites like Class 101. And even a long time ago, I downloaded this, I bought this random digital art painting course on semi-realism from this artist called Bearbrick Gia. And that helped me realize, you know, more than just color theory itself, it helped me realize, how do artists even draw? Like, I'm sure that me 10 years ago would have looked at my drawing and been like, how on earth? Like, how did she even draw this? You know what I mean? But, yeah, like, where even am I going with this conversation? I should have planned it out. But anyways, I digress. So I've talked about what this drawing is. I've talked about a little bit about my art process. I've complained a little about what it's like to learn how to draw. And I mentioned about how Lloyd's head changes in this piece, which we've already gotten past that part. I wasn't even watching my playback. But yep, Lloyd's head. I looked at some anatomy references and realized, oh no, Lloyd's head is, I was intending for the angle to be turned a bit more, but when I was drawing it, I realized that I didn't change some of it. Like, I was mostly looking more at the front of his head, and I kind of ignored the back of his head. So I went ahead and fixed that. Yes. So, okay, lastly, after I go ahead and add my shading, when it comes to rendering and going on top of all that shading, I like to add a lot of overlay layers and just all sorts of things like gradient maps, and I'll even just go ahead with a normal mode layer and draw extra hair strands or lights on the eyes and things like that, or just little edits here and there. So once I have my shading, I'll go ahead on top of it with the lighting, and I'll even add some effects like to brighten the piece. Or for example, you can see there are a bunch of sparkles in the bottom left of this piece once it goes on a bit more. But yeah. When it comes to my drawing process, it can be very convoluted and complex. But one of the things going forward with my drawing is learning how to paint in different unrealistic ways, if that makes sense. And that just comes down to playing around and experimenting, which I always encourage experimenting and doing whatever you want, because the minute that you don't enjoy drawing, the minute that you burn out, that's when you kind of end up not drawing anymore. And that's why I like drawing Spy Family so much, because I love to draw them. And it just keeps me drawing constantly. It's actually kind of crazy, if you ask me. But I digress. Is that the second time I said I digress? I don't know. But, yep. I wonder what else I should talk about in this video. As I said before, I've never recorded a voiceover for this long. And I noticed that my voice started getting a little high-pitched because I was starting to use my customer service voice. I don't need to give you guys my customer service voice. But yeah, I think it's probably about time that I end my discussion/conversation here, because it's starting to get a bit late and I still need to make the post for this video. But going forward, I think that I will probably write down the topics that I'm going to talk about. And I might even ask for questions and ask for ideas or topics that you want to hear my thoughts on, I guess. And something that I've been wanting to do in the future is make art tutorials and talk about how to draw and like just a little advice, things like that. As of right now, I'm just not really sure what kind of format I want to do that. Like, should I have a speed paint? Should I have a canvas and I just talk over it? Should I outline it and make pictures and stuff like that? You know, there's a million different ways I could go about it. But thank you guys so much for supporting my artwork and just watching what I do. I'm really grateful, and I look forward to making more speed paints, talking a bit more than I already do, and just sharing what I've got when it comes to art. And hopefully you guys are able to get some use out of it and further your own art journey. Or if you're not an artist and you just enjoy the random AUs that I make, or the endless amounts of fan art, or just the art style that I have, or will have in the future if I improve, I'm really grateful and thank you for being here. So with that, I will go ahead and leave that here and say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I actually do have something at the very end as a little surprise for you if you stay till the end. It is a song that I like hearing recently. I think it's trending on TikTok, but yeah. I put a little song at the end that is definitely copyrighted, but I don't think it will get the video taken down, so I'm including it anyways. But yeah, it's a song that I thought would just fit the majestic vibes if you'll have, majestic vibes if you will, with the piece. So stay tuned for that. And I will be leaving the instrumental Ghibli music in the background for your enjoyment. So thank you. It has been Sam, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day or night.
I used to hear a simple song. That was until you came along. Now in its place is something new. I hear it when I look at you. With simple songs I wanted more. Perfection is so quick to bore. You are more beautiful by far. Our flaws are who we really are. And now I hear a sin.